Mike Schecker is the best guy on creating those opens. Can you imagine an owner of an NBA team taking phone calls from fans in another market other than where his team is and explaining his financial situations to that caller who didn't even call him Dr. Bus? He called him Jerry. Hey, good day, Portland. Good day. And I mean, good day. Mid 80s? Kidding me? And I'm stuck in here in the Arctic studio. It's Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad is absent today. You know, if you've been listening all week, he's on his vacation. More on that in a minute. But I just want to tell you on this beautiful day what you need to do if you don't already have the iHeartRadio app. You better download that because you can take us along today on your walk, your ride, your trip to the park, you're walking the dog, whatever you're going to do. Take us along today because we're jammed with great guests today. I'm proud of this. Michael Shacker helped me put together a great lineup today. Coming up at 3:20, Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown. We get great reaction whenever Nick's on. He's got a great website. He's got a YouTube channel. He'll break down basketball. Even if you're not a PhD in basketball, you'll feel like you have that degree when you're done listening to Coach Nick. And I'm going to talk to him about last night's Boston Dallas game and have him break all that down. How in the world Boston did that to Dallas. And then coming up at 4:20, friend of the program, of course, Mike Parker is in Lexington, Kentucky, where his Beavers can take on the Kentucky Wildcats tomorrow in the first game of a best of three super regional. And we'll talk about that and get a scene setter from Mike on what it's like in that ballpark with the weather, with the injuries, everything on Oregon State versus Kentucky. Then coming up at 5:20, another friend of the program, an old friend of mine, Kelly Acoin, will join. He is, I say, starring. He's got a great role in the newest series on Hulu. It's a scripted series. It's not a documentary. It's called Clipped, and it's about Donald Sterling, the former owner of the Los Angeles Clippers. And during that, we're, you're going to see how Donald Sterling lost that team and what caused the NBA to take it away. It's an amazing story, and looking forward to talking to Kelly Acoin about being a participant in that wonderful series. At least I've seen the first two episodes. It's worth your time to watch on Hulu. So we'll talk to Kelly about that and just a little bit probably about his time as Dollar Bill on the great series Billions, which I'm sure a lot of you were fans of. But I want to get into a few things first. This series between Boston and Dallas, a lot of people like Dallas, and I don't think they like them as much. They're not ready to jump ship after the first game, but I don't think they liked them as much after that game last night. Really, Boston manhandled Dallas. It was amazing to see what the Celtics did on both ends of the court. We'll get into that with Coach Nick, but I just want to talk about a few things that I saw, and that is Luka and Kyrie were both played man to man by the Celtics, who switched every screen, meaning they had to have more than two people available to guard those two guys. They have enough people that even when they switch screens, that other player can guard that great offensive player. And the way it went down was unbelievable. It was quite a shock to the Mavericks. And after the game, Kyrie Irving, who had really a terrible game, his worst game of the playoffs, he was asked basically what happened.
They came out and hit us in the mouth early. It's not really like us to give up 37 points. It's happened to us before in the playoffs, but we just want to make it a lot tougher on them and get them rolling like that. They play a very easy game the rest of the game, and we just got to hit them in the mouth a little bit. So they did their job getting game one, but we're going to take our lessons and get ready for a good game two.
That's fair. They did. They came out and hit him in the mouth, and there wasn't much of a response. It seemed as if Dallas just wasn't ready for a lot of things it saw in that game. I want to talk about, too, Kristaps Porzingis, who has not played in the playoffs until last night. As you know, he was an unbelievable participant for the Celtics. He just made great contributions off the bench, which he's been a starter all year, but they're trying to bring him back in the lineup. I think easy and not be too hard on him and control his minutes a little bit. He was just terrific. Looked like he hadn't missed a game. And some of the stuff that he was responsible for is amazing. When he came into the game off the bench, the score was Boston 12, Dallas 11. When he checked out of the game, the Celtics were up by 17. I mean, his contribution was really unbelievable. He had 20 points in 21 minutes. He was 8 for 13 from the floor with 6 rebounds and 3 big block shots. In the first half, the Celtics won his 13 minutes by 15 points. Now, let's hear just a little bit from Boston coach Missoula Montana, as Chad would say, about his player Porzingis.
Just thought it gave us the best chance to win, and he was great on both ends of the floor. Defensive execution, game plan, fighting for a spot in the offensive end, being physical, and making plays on both ends of the floor. So I thought he played great. That's the KP that helped us get to where we are today.
Yeah, he did play great. He was basically talking about his reasons for bringing him off the bench, and it did work out well. Every time it seemed as if the Celtics were threatened, he would put Porzingis back in the game and restore order, so to speak. It was an amazing performance by him. I was very impressed. Before I go any further, I want to tell you, I will take some phone calls today. I just urge you not to call while we have a guest on the line, because I'm not going to break up an interview with a guest to take a phone call, but I am willing to take calls. If you've got questions for me or questions about the show or anything you've heard, or you just want to make your own contribution, feel free to call at 503-248-0620. I will also tell you, I'm not as patient as Chad sometimes with the phone calls. Sometimes if you're not bringing a lot to the table, I'll probably just thank you and and get rid of you, to tell you the truth. But moving on with this game, the Celtics playing Luka and Kyrie man-to-man was so impressive. Jaylen Brown made great contributions defensively on especially Luka. He had 3 block shots and 3 steals. And this is a guy who contributed on offense, too. He was their leading scorer. But the Celtics are just so balanced that everyone can defend, everyone can score. That's why they're out there. And that's the kind of game they play. It's a team game. The people off the bench had great luck defending and scoring. So this is a full team against a 2-man team as far as I'm concerned. But what the Celtics were able to do is keep Luka and Kyrie from becoming playmakers. It was unbelievable to me. I mean, Luka had 1 assist for the entire game. This is a triple-double guy. He had 1 assist. Kyrie, 2 assists. I mean, give me a break. That's crazy stuff. I don't know what to say about it. Dallas as a team, 9 assists for the game. That's Terry Stott's Portland Trailblazer kind of assist total. That's back when you had Dame going one-on-one a lot. And this is stuff that you can't win with at this level. You just can't. You can't go into the finals and expect to do well and not be moving the ball around. And that's the problem I had. And the reason I like the Celtics to win this series is that they do move the ball, move bodies. Everybody gets involved. They're really difficult to guard. They're a great three-point shooting team, but not just with 2 or 3 players. Just about everybody they put on the floor, including Porzingis, can shoot threes. And that's the ultimate weapon in the game today. Everybody knows that. This is the reason the teams win games in the NBA. It's shooting and making threes. Oftentimes, though, it's not even making as many as you'd think, but it's just shooting them. They've done a great job with that. I like the game. I like the game for Boston a lot. Now, we'll be back with Coach Nick of B-Ball Breakdown. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to ask him to break this whole thing down. And you know what? I want to ask him, too, about how's Danny Hurley, how would he fit with the Lakers as a head coach if he takes the job? All of that coming up on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Do you have his number? Still no word from NBC on whether they're sending me to Paris to cover those Olympics for them, but I'd be happy to do it. I have volunteered. Yes, it is the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad is absent today on vacation. But, whenever we get to a spot where I want to talk about strategy, some kind of thing that I'm not quite sure I understand, but I need to know about it. There's one guy we call. He's a friend of the program, has joined us several times. It's Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown. If you're not following him on X, you're making a big mistake. There's also the YouTube channel, the website, and all. He'll tell us about all of that. But, Coach Nick, thanks for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Dwight. I'm always happy to be with you on your show.
All right. Now, let's get right into this game last night. I was very surprised at the defensive success Boston had with Kyrie and Luka. And I guess I shouldn't be because they are a solid defensive team and all that. But they played them man-to-man. They switched everything. They took away the lobs. They took away Luka and Kyrie's ability to make plays. They virtually no assists almost. How did they do that, Nick?
Well, I was looking at this. I did the video earlier this morning, and this is probably one of the worst games we've seen from Kyrie in the playoffs this year, certainly, and then in a long time. Now, it's been 7 years since Kyrie's been in the finals. He's playing against his old team. They're booing him whenever he touches the ball. So I got to tell you, I mean, it doesn't seem plausible, but I wonder if Kyrie felt a little bit of pressure, because he was doing things and making decisions we hadn't normally seen in terms of missing shots really badly. He was 0 for 5 on a stretch of open threes, and a couple of those were key moments in that third quarter where they hit that one and maybe they get some equilibrium back and they can get back in the game. So, I look at it from that standpoint where it's I can't believe he'll ever play worse than this in game one going forward. So, at least if you're a Mavericks fan, you can probably take solace in the fact that, yes, they were going to get better play. But all I can come up with Kyrie specifically would be that maybe he was just a little nervous.
What about Luka? I know he got 30 points, but it wasn't the same Luka.
No, he looked terrible. I thought he was terrible on both sides of the ball. He'd actually been pretty effective defensively for this playoff series. He's been doing relatively nicely. So is Kyrie. But in this game, they did spotlight on a replay where he moved his feet and kept it in front and made it look like, oh, he's playing defense. But all the other times, his positional defense before, as the possession unfolded, was really bad, way off of his man. And I think what they're struggling to do is figure out where to basically hide him so that he doesn't do as much damage. It's not easy to do that against the Celtics of all teams because they got a lot of shooters all over the place. So, he was missing easy shots. He wasn't taking shots that he would normally take in the lane. So I think that they threw him off by the switching stuff that they were doing versus what they saw against the Timberwolves with a lot of chase and drop of the big man. So I think that it's a whole new skill set. He's going to kind of re-download the new manual like you do like in the Matrix when their eyes flutter. So I suspect that he'll kind of get all that straightened out for game two. He won't play much worse than that. Even though I know he had 30, it was not a good game on offensively either for him. But he's got to be better defensively. He kept sliding off of his man on the weak side in the corners and wasn't really helping much on the penetration. So by the time his man gets the ball, he isn't close enough, and they're hitting shots that way, and he's getting beat off the dribble. So he's got to be, I don't know, call it 35% better defensively, and then that'll work for them if they can get him to be, 70% better on the offensive end.
Yeah. Nick, one thing I did notice is he actually asked out in the second quarter, and the talk was he was tired. And they did kind of hut him a little bit in the pick and roll situations. I thought it looked like they were trying, to me anyway, to tire him out a little bit, make him work at the defensive end. That's become such a cliche in basketball, that great offensive player, make him work his tail off at the defensive end and maybe take his legs away from him a little bit. You think that could have had some impact?
Well, ironically, what I saw was him trying to take it easy on defense to save himself so he wouldn't get too tired, and yet he got it tired anyway. But I wouldn't be surprised with his knee problems that he's been having in all pro season long. He probably didn't do much for 7 straight days, besides getting treatment.
Yeah.
So that's not surprising to me either. 7 days, even when you're young and you're 25, you can still lose cardio that way, and it will take a little bit of time to maybe get that back. That was probably a mistake. So but I would imagine that's probably a factor of it as well, is where he was sedentary for a lot of the time, desperate to get his knee feeling better, and as a result, yes, he looked tired. He also fell hard on the knee. It looked like he was laboring just on that kind of pain, and I think you and I know when you're walking around with pain in the old joints there, it can make you tired.
Yes, it can. I know. Nick, I was curious, too, what you think about, the Celtics are a high-volume three-point shooting team. Obviously, they love the three. They have a lot of guys who shoot it, and some guys who shoot it very well. Have you found, do you think there's a variance in those kind of teams where it's just not going to be there every single game, which would, I think, also give some hope to Dallas people that, they didn't have a great three-point shooting night last night, but they hit a lot of them, and they're going to hit a lot of them, I think. But could they be due at any time for one of those games where the ball just doesn't go in from there?
Well, sure. Look at the third quarter run the Mavericks did to get back in the game and cut it to 8, I believe.
Yeah.
They missed five threes. I think 5 in a row or 5 out of 6. And it was ugly. Like, those are when the games in the NBA, as they've gotten to be more and more three-point heavy, when you get these back and forth and the teams, miss three-pointers consecutively, it looks like a pickup game a little bit. And that's what it looked like a little bit with the Celtics for sure. So I guarantee you are going to see that variance in the game, not even from game to game, within quarters. You're going to see that when they're taking 7 or 8 a quarter. And that's going to be an opportunity for the Mavericks. And again, they missed out maybe being on the road, being a hostile crowd, the whole thing with Kyrie. They missed out on a lot of open threes as well. So if they were going through the film again, if I was Jason Kidd, they would probably be somewhat encouraged that, they were able to cut it to that, and they were able to find a little bit here and there. But I think the biggest thing they have to surmount here would be matchups. Who is going to guard who, and what are the lineups going to look like going forward? It was the opening salvo, but they're going to have to do some tweaking there. I even have some ideas if you want to hear them.
I certainly do want to hear them.
Well, I was looking at how they were deciding how they wanted to guard, and what they were doing was they had Luka. Gosh, who do they have Luka on? Here's my idea. I think that they should put Luka on Derek White. They were trying to put him on Horford to kind of hide him, and that was hurting him. Horford was getting open on the perimeter, and then also they like to screen with Horford, and that means Luka's got to switch onto the ball handler, which is going to be Brown or Tatum, and that doesn't work that well. So, and then they had T.J. Washington on Brown and Derek Jones Jr. on Tatum. I would probably flip that. To me, T.J.'s a little taller, would probably just sort of maybe match up a little bit better with Tatum. So I don't know why they did that. And then Gafford, because they were switching Luka, if you flip it the other way, Gafford should be guarding. I think. Well, he should be the guy guarding Horford and not Luka. Which brings me to my other point about Gafford. They yank him about 3 minutes into the first quarter in a lot of these games, 3-4 minutes. It's really short. They wanted to match Lively with KP. But I think Gafford's the key here, and he's physically stronger than Lively. He's a really good athlete. He could hurt them. In fact, if you remember, as soon as Luka ran a pick and roll with Gafford, Brown had to pick up Gafford in the paint, if you remember this, and they went right through him in the post. They help out. He kicks to Jones, and he hits a three. It looked beautiful, right? They don't do that. They didn't do that the rest of the game. So that's a key there, and it was hard to do it when Gafford gets yanked so quickly on some of these rotations. So I said a whole lot of things in there. I went to kind of different places, but I think that Jason Kidd, if they're looking at it the way I'm looking at it, you're going to see different lineups and different matchups to guard Boston that'll make it better for them. And I believe, this is a long series, and I have a feeling they're going to get back into it pretty quick.
Yeah, now, Porzingis is obviously going to be a tough matchup for them. What did you think about Mazzulla bringing him off the bench? And it seemed to work last night, at least. It seemed like every time the Celtics got in trouble, he rushed him back out there, and he kind of took control of the situation every time he came out.
Yeah, well, when the Mavericks got used to playing against Rudy, the trail threes that he hits, Rudy would never do that, so Gafford's not out there and Lively's not out there ready for that yet. They will be now, I can guarantee you that, after seeing it. By the way, if you noticed, KP wasn't very effective in the second half. He had a really big first half. And and was on fire and all those things. But he can't sustain that. That was insane what he was doing. Mid-range, getting beat up. They weren't calling a couple fouls I thought they could have while he was shooting those shots and still hitting them. So the Mavericks probably look at it that way as well, where it's like, okay, he can hurt us in spurts in a small set there, but I would also be encouraged. I think he got 5 shots in the second half, and maybe he made 1, and it just wasn't really a factor. Now, that said, it was kind of a blowout, so it's hard to kind of factor in what we're going to do after with the third quarter, by the end of the third quarter. The fourth quarter was kind of a anticlimactic, so it's a little bit hazy there. But even so, you saw like the variance of the three-point shot for the Celtics. We're also going to see variance on, guys like everybody. KP, we're going to see Tatum, you'll see Brown. All those guys will most likely have ups and downs and wild rides all over the place, because consistency isn't necessarily the strongest of their points.
Yeah, that's true. Our guest is Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown. If you're not following Nick, you should, either on the website, the YouTube channel, X. He's there for you, and it's always good. He has great video, which doesn't translate real well to radio, I must add, but still in all. I look at these two teams, Nick, and I see, I'm a guy that kind of likes motion, moving the ball, moving bodies. I like to see that. The Celtics do some of that, They do fall into their one-on-one stuff, especially when Tatum has the ball. But I like that, and I think it makes them harder to guard. I don't see an awful lot out of the Mavericks, and I guess for good reason. They have two great one-on-one players. But do you think it would help them really to do that a little bit, at least run some sort of actions before they get to the pick and roll or whatever? How do you see that, not only with these guys, but in today's game?
I mean, there's no question that since, 2012, when the Spurs were on their big run, they showed us the blueprint of how it's important to get some action before the pick and roll, so the defense is not just waiting for you. I will say the Mavericks do have some nice stuff. They have this interesting set where Kyrie will set a back screen for a player on the wing, and we saw them run it, but then KP takes 3 steps in that direction, and the guy who's open for the layup isn't going to shoot it, right? But that's a real profound effect.
Yeah.
So that makes it different, and that's why it's like, okay, how are we going to run this up? They have a nice double ball screen package, the Mavericks do. I'm trying to rack my brains. I know I went through a lot of the footage. I don't think I saw it hardly at all. They decided, not to do that, and I'm not sure why, because it works so well against the Timberwolves. So, sometimes it happens, right? You're opening up a series. You have some ideas. You certainly have plenty of time to prepare. But I think that you might get a little bit too clever for yourself, and you think, let's go away from the things you're doing. They're going to be ready for it. But in fact, it's like the Green Bay Packers sweep. If it really works, why go away from it? But both of these teams aren't going to give you like the beautiful game like the Warriors do, and the Kings. We're just not going to see it, primarily because of the 2 guys on each team that are so good individually. But I will say that the Celtics, when they went on their run to the finals 2 years ago, were really doing a lot of that, a lot of middle drives and kickouts for threes, and then one more passes. That was beautiful, and that's kind of unfortunately gone away. But they're a little bit better team personnel wise now, and I guess it doesn't matter, Dwight. We're going to have to kind of pine for the days when we have a lot of handoffs and backdoor cuts and all that stuff.
Well, there is hope, Nick. I'm thinking about Dan Hurley coming to the Lakers and maybe bringing some of that stuff from UConn, and they play kind of that way. He plays kind of a pro style, a lot of sets from the pros and stuff. I'm wondering give me 2 answers now. How does he fit technically, basketball-wise, in the league? And what about emotionally? We've seen him on the sidelines. We've seen him with players. We've seen him with officials. How do you see those 2 things for Hurley, if indeed he goes to the Lakers?
Well, let me make it clear that when you watch his offense run, it's a coach's dream. We love all that movement.
Yeah.
It's got a mixture of like triangle and Princeton and all this modern stuff as well with pistol action. So you see a lot of great movement, a lot of handoffs, a lot of skip passing, a lot of flare screens. We love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 30-second shot clock in college, and when you watch a lot of those sets unfold, they take a lot of that time, and you don't have that time in the NBA. You have less than that with a 24-second clock. So, if he's going to be able to get any of that, they're going to have to push that ball up much quicker than they're used to get into the offense that much quicker. So I don't know if he's going to be able to he'll have to really kind of abbreviate a lot of that, but it's still fine. And you should still see some of what he does, but it won't be I bet you he'll be less than 80% or 70% of what he's doing now at college because of that.
Yeah.
So, and, then the elephant in the room would be is, okay, you're really going to get LeBron to be a cog in an offense and AD? Like, are they going to really be back screen, sprint to the top, swing the ball, and, follow that for a ball screen? Like, that's a lot of action, a lot of quick movement and sprinting and moving. If my memory serves, the Lakers are not one of the top teams in terms of distance covered on offense because it's static for them.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, so that gets to the next question you asked about, how he's going to communicate, basically, is what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times motion offense coaches are yellers, right? We've seen that from Bobby Knight all the way down.
They're loud. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been in the old man's practices. I've seen those firsthand. Those are not for the faint of heart. And so Dan Hurley has come out over the last couple of years and been very eloquent in his description of his evolution of his communication style. And I'm really big on that, having been coached by the crazy Bob Knight style people, and then being a coach myself and probably having too much of that influence and getting away from it. I'm not completely sold that he really has embraced the new age version of communication where he understands how important it is to have players in a positive frame of mind. I don't know if he really embraces that. We still see enough in my mind that I can imagine it's still he probably still likes to use a bit of anger and disgust in his communication methods. That ain't going to fly real well in the NBA.
Yeah.
Maybe you can mellow out more and kind of just be like, whoa, okay, these are real pros. These are real adults. These are guys who are older and wiser, and they don't need that. But I would be surprised if he would completely change his personality basically for that. So I have an arched eyebrow. I would be interested to see how it worked, but I'd be surprised. I honestly would be surprised if he takes the job. And then B, I don't know. I don't know what the odds are of how well it would work. I'd maybe go like 60-40. I think that would actually work. And by the way, what does that mean, work? Like they'll win a title? Like, I don't think that's going to happen anyway. But if it works like they're winning, and they're in the top 4 in the West, like, okay, yeah, I'll give them like maybe 50-50, 60-40 for that happening.
Yeah, I just want to see the first time LeBron doesn't get back on defense and what happens on the sidelines when that happens. Kind of looking.
Oh, they'll have to probably hold him down. Hold him back.
Our guest has been Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown. And Nick, tell people how they can follow you on all the different things that you got going.
Well, I'm old, and you and I are a little, past our when we were young, running around the basketball court, I think. So because of that, Dwight, all you got to do is type in BBALL, B-Ball, and it will most likely autofill the B-Ball Breakdown anywhere you are because it's been on the platform for so long. So type in B-Ball Breakdown or B-Ball, whatever, it'll autofill, and then anywhere from TikTok to Instagram to Twitter to YouTube, that's where you'll find me.
Excellent. And on YouTube, subscribe to this guy's stuff. It's well worth it. You'll be educated. Nick, thanks for joining up today. I really appreciate it. Great stuff as usual.
My pleasure, Dwight. Anytime, I'll be there.
Okay. Coach Nick, B-Ball Breakdown. Got a great handle on what's going on. I love how honest he was, too, about Hurley. And saying, too, he'd be surprised if he took the job. I feel much the same way. I just don't think that job's for him. I think there might be a better NBA job come up. It won't be the Lakers, and I know everybody says, oh, it's the Lakers. You know what? The Lakers, that's not the same brand that it used to be, in my opinion anyway. We'll be back with more stuff in just a few moments, and I will remind you, coming up at 4:20, Mike Parker from Lexington, Kentucky. 5:20, Kelly Aucoin talking about his role in Clipped. Rip City Drive with Chad and Dwight. And as I mentioned, Chad is absent today. He is not AWOL, absent without leave. He has leave. He's on vacation, and he's well earned it. Doesn't even take all his vacation days, I think. But he's in New York. I've mentioned that before. But let me ask you this. You ever give a restaurant review or restaurant recommendation to somebody and then kind of be a little nervous when you do it? Because you hope they go to the restaurant and it all works out okay. See, I was a little nervous about this one because I had never been to the place myself. But when Chad was going to New York, he said, tell me a place that I can get a great steak. And I said, well, Chad, a lot of times when I'm in New York, I don't go out to dinner because I'm usually there for a game, which is usually at night. So I'm not really available in the dinner hours to try places. If I am, it's just something quick and fast so that I can get to the game. But anyway, I've been hearing for years about a steak place in New York called Gallagher's. So I said, Chad, all I've ever heard is Gallagher's is the best. Try Gallagher's. So he went to their website, looked it up. He said, it's not even that expensive. So he made a reservation. And last night he went to Gallagher's. And I thought, oh, man, I can't wait to hear about it because I hope it was okay. So last night I got a text from Chad, and I'm going to read it to you, along with a couple of pictures. And the text said, the 10-ounce filet at Gallagher's is the best steak I have ever had. I'm sitting here in disbelief at how great it tastes. Wow. Whew. What a relief that was. Because, Chad's really picky about the food he eats. You know that if you listen. He doesn't eat a lot of red meat. And when he does, he wants the best. And I understand that. We've gone to nothing but the best steakhouses. We eat the best. We order the best thing on the menu, usually. He doesn't mind paying for it. He's able to do that. And so I envy that. That's really the way to do it. And Chad is one of those guys that you don't want to steer him wrong because he doesn't eat an awful lot in the first place. So when he does, you want it to be good, right? So anyway, I told him Gallagher's. I know a lot of people sent him restaurant recommendations. So when I hear, I'll let you know what he says about it. But he might respond directly to you about them. I hope he does anyway, because I think some of you are probably on pins and needles about it too, just like I was. But it's one of those things that I sometimes even choose not to give a recommendation unless it's fast food. And even then, in fast food, people have their own particular tastes that I sometimes don't understand. I mean, some people will tell me they prefer some burger joint, and I've tried it and thought it was not good. But they liked it, and whatever. Everybody's got a different taste bud, I guess. But coming up next hour, Mike Parker joins us. I have mentioned he's in Lexington, Kentucky, with Oregon State, and he's going to give us a breakdown on what their ballpark is like, because those ballparks, those college ballparks in the SEC, anywhere in the South really, are great. And I want to hear about this one because I haven't heard about it. Also, give us a full weather forecast. Catch us up on any injuries that they have with the Beavers. All of that is coming up in the next hour. He will join us at 4:20. Like I said, if you don't have the iHeart app, pick it up. It's easy. It's free. Listen to us on the go. Get the earphones out, and there you go. All of that coming up in the next hour. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad right here for you. Take us along on your sunny day. I'm very envious. Hope you're on the golf course, the pickleball court, wherever it is that you like to go to enjoy a warm, warm day. Enjoy yourself out there. I have to say, I kind of agree with Coach Nick. He is not very sure that Danny Hurley is going to take the Laker job. And Dan Hurley is purportedly, anyway, meeting with the Lakers today. And we'll see. We'll see. I would think he'd meet and then go back home, talk it over with his family, and then make a decision. And he's got a basketball family, by the way. His dad, his brother, his wife, everybody's involved in basketball. And he'll get some good advice. And I would guess there's some people at home kind of pulling for him to stick around that area. A lot of people, if it's not their job, they're just family members, they don't really want to move, you know. They're not interested in that. So we'll see. I just think it may not be the right job for him. It comes with so many entanglements. Number one, LeBron James is an entanglement because I don't think he wants to play the way Dan Hurley wants to play. Now, obviously, Hurley is the long-term play. If the Lakers bring Hurley in, that's a long-term contract, and they're going to have to live through whatever goes on during his change because he's going to make changes there. There's going to be culture change, basketball on court change, all kinds of things. He's going to want his own assistant coaches, maybe even his own scouts. He's going to want to take part in the draft. And this is going to be a big change. And I'm not sure LeBron with a year or two left, I don't think he'll want to leave the Lakers. I just don't think he's going to want to play the way Dan Hurley's teams have always played. You know, unselfishly, play hard on defense, move the ball, move bodies, all that stuff. I'm not sure he buys into that. So that makes it a kind of a difficult job for a couple of years, and you're not going to win. You know, that's the other problem. You're going to play a lot of games. You're not going to win a lot of games. I think he's a great coach. I don't think with the talent that's there, he has the ability to turn them into a plus 500 really good playoff team. I don't think it's in the cards for him. So I think he might be better off staying at UConn. He makes plenty of money there. He's not going to make the kind of money the Lakers would pay him. But how much do you need? Seriously. You know, I mean, if you're making $5 million a year, which is probably, I don't know, UConn probably maybe pay him $7 million a year. He still hasn't signed a new contract with them, but maybe he's just using this to get the best contract he can from UConn. But really, if you're making $6-7 million a year, and then maybe you go to the Lakers, make 12, 15 even, there's a difference, big difference. But I mean, you're talking about money for your great-great-grandchildren. This is not money you're going to need. You're going to put that away, and it's going to be worth more money at a certain point than it is now. And so at this point of your life, do you want the headaches that job will bring you? And I tell people this all the time. You know, NBA basketball is not just the playoffs. It's that long season of day to day to day grinding, the travel, the back-to-back games, 3 games in 4 nights, players getting hurt, players not being hurt, but yet wanting to sit down, pressure from the front office, pressure from ownership, pressure from fans, media market like L.A., pressure from the media, maybe, although they're not too bad down there on coaches. I would say that job brings a lot of headaches. At this point of your coaching career, do you want those headaches? Or would you like to go back to UConn where you could be, the governor of the state, the president of the university, the most popular guy on campus? That's a nice way to kind of live out your coaching career and still have all the money you ever need in your pocket. and all the money your children will ever need in their pockets. It's really a situation that I don't know that I'd mess around too much trying to get better. Sometimes the life you're living is better than the grass is greener on the other side, you know? And I think people have to be real careful when they do that. And I know every guy coaching wants to take those steps to the highest level. You want to coach the greatest players. He'd probably love to have a shot at coaching LeBron, but maybe he doesn't even know what headaches that might bring, because it would bring headaches. It would. And like I mentioned to Coach Nick on the phone last hour, can't wait till the last time LeBron doesn't hustle back on defense, because the last time he doesn't will not be the last time he does it. He doesn't hustle back on defense, and that's going to drive a coach wild. Somebody like Hurley, who's been in college and has the ability to yell and scream at his players, which he does, even though he says he doesn't, he does. I've heard from several people that the officials, the referees in college, hate him, can't stand him, don't want to do his games because he's a real pain on the sidelines. And in college, they don't kick coaches out. Not very often anyway. They just have to shut up and take it. I've seen it for years now. They don't have much power in college because they want to keep getting those games. And if they start kicking coaches out, they won't get the big games. They just won't be there. So he's going to have to put up with officials in the NBA who aren't going to take that guff from him. They're just not going to take it at all. And so I think in a way he'd probably be making a mistake if he took that job. Number here, by the way, 503-248-0620. We can slide in a call or two before we get to our interview with Mike Parker, who's in Lexington. Can't wait to speak with Mike. But somebody's also bringing something up on Twitter today that one of my pet peeves, and I have many. But, it was actually Jay Adonde, good guy, used to be a sports writer in L.A., columnist. Now I think he's on the faculty at Northwestern Journalism School. Might even be the head of the sports journalism school there. His tweet was that he wishes that teams would just kind of stick to the colored jerseys that they're supposed to have instead of all these crazy colors and stuff. And like he said, trying to figure out which NBA team is the home team these days. These kids with their icon and statement jerseys. Here's a statement. Home teams should wear white. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm an old timer. But do you remember the day? Baseball, basketball, football. Home teams wore white, right? Road teams wore either gray or color. Baseball, they always wore gray. You don't even see that anymore. But the home team should wear white. That's just the way it was. And it started a long time ago because when you wore white, the uniforms tended to get dirty, and it was a lot easier to clean them at home than it was on the road. And that's why home teams always wore white. But we've gone away from that. The statement, the city jerseys, all that stuff. I've grown a little bit impatient with it, particularly like the City Connect jerseys. Some of them I've really liked it, but they don't stick with them. It's like those great, I like that Blazer jersey they had a few years ago. The colors on it were beautiful. It was like a creamsicle color, but it said Oregon on the front, which I thought was really strange for a City Connect jersey, that it didn't have the city's name on it. It had Oregon on it, but that was fine. I liked that jersey. I thought it looked cool. They had them 1 year, and that was it. Now, I think you can still probably buy them because they'll still sell you anything they can, but the team wore them just 1 year, and that's the way with the City Connect. You get a new one every year, and I think that's pushing the bounds of the ability of designers to come up with good designs every year. I'm not sure they can do that. I don't think they hit the mark a good portion of the time. But I think it's fun when a team gets a new uniform. Like once every 3, 4, 5 years, you want to do that. Do it. It's good once in a while. And fans like to buy the new uniform. That's good too. But it's always exciting when a team gets a new one. You want to see what it looks like. You either like it or dislike it. But the Blazers haven't done much over the years with logos, with uniforms. They've probably been one of the more conservative teams in the league. Not changing too much away from the basics. I know they've certainly had the pinwheel logo forever. Now, they've made a few tweaks to it. They kind of tilted it, straightened it out, put a little border on it once in a while. But it's basically the pinwheel that's been from the start. And, oh, man, I took a lot of guff a couple of years ago for just suggesting, what would be wrong with getting rid of that? I mean, they've had that for a long time. And quite frankly, it doesn't mean anything to people outside of Portland. It's sort of like the whole Rip City thing. Everybody in Portland loves Rip City, and the team has adopted that as in, this is Rip City. Well, I guess, but if somebody from Detroit asks you, well, what does that mean? A good portion of the people using those words can't explain it. And it was, frankly, something Bill Schonely used from his years of calling baseball games. It was a phrase you used in baseball if your team was really hitting the ball hard. If you're ripping the ball all over the field, that's Rip City. But Jim Barnett hit a long jumper. Rip City, all right. And it became his trademark call and became basically Portland's nickname. We are now Rip City. And a lot of the Blazers advertising, a lot of their marketing has become Rip City, and they actually feature the Rip City clothing line. Rip City, everybody. We'll be back with a voice of Oregon State sports, the unique, the one-of-a-kind, the great Mike Parker. Welcome back to Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. And unfortunately, without Chad today, we're making do. And I think we're going to have a pretty nice show for you today, including this hour when we present to you Mike Parker. Big weekend for our college baseball teams here in Oregon. The Ducks are on the road at College Station playing A&M in their super regional, and the Beavers on the road in Lexington, Kentucky, to meet the Kentucky Wildcats. A big challenge for both of those schools. Both are heavy underdogs. But the Beavers, they might be ready to do some damage. As hard as it is to win a super regional on the road, I think they have a shot. I'm anxious to hear what Mike Parker thinks about that. And let's go to Mike Parker right now and have him set the scene for us in Lexington, Kentucky.
Dwight, it's great to be on with you. Beautiful ballpark. It opened in 2019, nearly $50 million worth under Mitch Barnhart's watch. In fact, driving into the ballpark, the Barnhart Family Sports Complex, he's always been a big baseball proponent. Pat Casey would tell you that he was helpful to Beaver baseball in the time when Pat was building Goss Stadium at Coleman Field. Make no mistake, I mean, Case did the heavy lifting on that and found the John and Aline Goss family and the fun. But Mitch was supportive of baseball and came to almost every home game and was big into baseball. In fact, he was the one who gave me the opportunity to come to work at Oregon State originally in '99. So I've always been, in that sense, grateful to and indebted to Mitch for giving me the opportunity at Oregon State. And this ballpark was pushed through under his watch, like I said. $50 million worth, opened in 2019. So it's bright and new, and seats. Their attendance during the regionals was over 6 for each game. I hear tell they can get as many as 7 if the grassy berms down both the left and right field lines are full. Those berms are kind of sloped upward. They've got some bleachers way out in left center field that have been brought in for the regional. And it looks like the Beavers are going to encounter a beautiful ballpark, artificial turf, which is a little surprising to me, but it's artificial turf save for the mound. This is my first look at it as we're speaking. Kentucky's on the field now. The Beavers will be on it a little bit later. It's beautiful. The humidity is low. It's in the mid-70s. The wind's blowing out right now, out towards right field, and the ball's jumping. But Kentucky, now we'll get into the baseball part of it, Dwight. I'm not sure you would be a fan of what Nick Mingione, their head coach, does. They lead the SEC in sacrifice bunts. So while they hit the long ball, they're very proficient in the small ball game and move runners and bunt a lot, and they steal. They've stolen 113 bases. So they're kind of old school in that way. The Beavers have been, they used to play that way, as you know, much less so now. And I think the way the Beavers play, you kind of like that they haven't bunted a whole lot this year.
Mike, the more small ball they play, the better chance the Beavers have of advancing. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I got you.
I'm also going to ask you, how deep are the fences? Is this going to be a home run park for a team that likes to hit a lot of home runs?
I think it could be, Dwight. I'm looking. And I haven't seen that they don't have, and I don't like them when ballparks don't give you the alley distances. It's 320 down both lines and 400 to straightaway center. And I have been looking, and so far in vain, through the notes and things about, just like basic facts about the ballpark. And that's all I've gotten, the dimensions that I just gave you. I've not seen alley dimensions. That's something I'm going to have to find out. But again, with the wind today, the ball's jumping. I mean, while we're talking, I've seen left and right-handed hitters both leaving the yard for Kentucky with regularity during BP. So I do expect that to play well for the Beavs, the way they swing the bats.
Mike, people talk about the SEC being so strong in baseball, and certainly the weather is a part of it. But I'll tell you, you could look at the whole foundation of these programs down there. Just about all those teams have those beautiful ballparks like that one, and I've seen several of them. And it just kind of starts with that. It allows more people in the park. You can probably charge more for tickets because there's more good seats. All of that stuff, I think, leads to a good program. And I'm happy to hear their there playing in a nice ballpark. That works because I'm sure the Beavers are going to bring along a pretty good crowd too, because they travel so well. And I'm just happy to hear they'll have a great environment for this series.
Yeah, it's going to be nice, Dwight, no doubt. And Big Blue Nation, as they call them here, it's not as though they've discovered baseball in the last couple of years, but they've jumped on board in a big way. The lines before games are long. People jump in and get in here early. They're tough on the opposition. So it's Goss Stadium at Coleman Field, rich twice as large in a sense. I mean, the Beavers, not quite that much. The Beaver crowds are tremendous, and they were great during the Corvallis Regional. But this will be a little different, and it is the SEC on the road, and this is Kentucky's best year yet in baseball. This is the first time they've ever hosted a Super Regional. They went 22-8 in the best conference in college baseball, and so it's going to be a tough out. But I think the Beavers, Dwight, are actually set up reasonably well going on the road into SEC country to have a chance to get out of here.
I was going to ask you, Mike, it's been a team really hurt a little bit by injuries throughout the season. How is everything now? It looks on the surface to me like everybody that you need is kind of back now. You hearing anything about anybody that might be unavailable for the Super Regional?
Well, a guy that was not available essentially all year and tried to pitch in the Corvallis Regional, A.J. Lattery, is not here. He won't be available for the Beavers in this regional. If they get to Omaha, he may have a chance to be part of that pitching depth, I'm told. But other than that, you're right. I mean, they've gotten healthy at the right time. But beyond just the physical health, I also think in the pitching, we talk a lot about the Beavers and their offense, and we should. It does start with a very good and balanced lineup. But the way Aiden May's been pitching on Fridays, Jacob Komatz on Saturdays, Eric Segura, the freshman's been a little up and down, but he's been up enough to give you, reasonable hope when he starts a ball game. He got through a real shaky first and actually ended up pitching fairly well in the Corvallis Regional against UC Irvine. But it's Nelson Keljo here lately, Dwight, that it feels like that big, strapping, physical body, the left arm, touched, with great gifts, the velocity, the nasty stuff. He's harnessed it here lately. He's throwing strikes. He's commanding. And if you get Keljo to join May and Komatz in that kind of realm, you really got something. You got a chance with three frontline arms to do some damage. And Bridger Holmes, a little, he's got some moments where he'll hit a guy, but he's also a pretty darn good closer, too. He can kind of pitch himself in and out of trouble. So I think those four are hot right now, and they'll need to supplement it with some other guys. But I do think pitching physically and just the way they've been throwing the ball lately is maybe at the highest point it's been all year.
Yeah, I've had concerns with their bullpen all year, Mike, but to see Keljo, it just seems like that really sets up everybody else because he can be the bridge to the closers and right. Both, Joey, I think Munt's been fine and Holmes is fine. You see with any closers, even in the big leagues, you see him blow a save and you think, how could you, it kills you when a guy blows a save, but they all blow a save once in a while. Yeah. So if they blow two or three during a season, you can't get alarmed by that. It's just part of the process, I think. But I'm very impressed now with the pitching overall. And it was my biggest concern with this team all season. As you know, we've talked about it, and I've been concerned. But Komatz has held up so well. I think he's really come into his own this season in terms of being able to, it looks like he commands the strike zone pretty well now. And with his stuff, he's picked up a couple miles per hour, and now he looks like a legit prospect to me.
He does. Well, I agree with you that, he was a freshman All-America. Then I thought slipped back a little bit last year just in terms of, a guy that you thought might be dominant, after the freshman All-America season. It just took a little bit of a step back. This year, he's just gotten better and better with each start. I mean, in a 4-pitch mix where, the other day he was commanding everything beautifully against UC Irvine, a good offensive club, able to land his breaking ball in any count. His cutter boring in on left-handed hitters, fouling. People couldn't make good contact against that pitch. Now, Kentucky's more of a contact-oriented team. They draw a lot of walks. They get hit a lot. They run, 113 stolen bases. They put pressure on you in the run game. So Kmatz and May and everybody have to do a good job in that category and be able to field their position with the sacrificed bunts and all of that. But I do think Kmatz is at the highest point he's been at in his career and has turned himself into a prospect, as has May most of the season. Aiden, as you alluded to earlier, was one of those guys that was shut down for a good stretch of the season. I feel like if May had been healthy all year, the Beavers might have won the Pac-12 regular season outright, but they missed him some key Friday night starts and came up a little short. And, who knows? That could have been the difference between being in Corvallis for a super or being on the road for a super regional, which has only happened one other time in 2011. The Beavers went to Vanderbilt and got stoned in 2 games pretty hard by a great Vanderbilt club. I'm expecting a much better series than that one was. I just think this team's got a shot with the pitching being where it is to get through a tough environment.
We're talking with Mike Parker, the voice of the Oregon State Beavers, who is in Lexington with the Beavers. Mike, I wanted to ask you about the lineup, a few questions. Number one, do you expect Mitch Canham to go with offense or defense at third base? And I guess I speak of Trotsky at third, who's a great defender at whatever position they seem to put him at, or Caraway, the young freshman who really swings the bat well, but may not quite be having the defensive ability that Trotsky has. Do you have any feel for who might play there in that spot?
That's a big question and a great question, Dwight. I tend to think, when we talk about pitching, as you know, the two always go together. People talk about pitching and defense. So we may have just answered our question by the accent on pitching with Kmatz and May and Holmes and Munt, Hutchison, Keljo. Those are key guys. But I think defense, Kentucky defends. They're great. They are a great defensive club. Their play up the middle. They have 2 of the best middle infielders in America. And the highlights, the stats, everything, that is borne out in what they do, what you see on a statistical page, but just when you watch them in their games, they are really good defensively. And I don't think the Beavers can lose that edge, I guess, in that sense. And these games are going to be competitive enough. So I'm not making the lineup, and Mitch hasn't told me.
Yeah.
But my leaning is I think they want to be the best they can possibly be on defense and give their pitchers the best shot. So my gut level is Caraway showed enough skittishness in trying to come back after missing, much of the season. They may want his bat in the lineup. They may look at DHing him perhaps. But I think my gut level is Trotsky will be the starter at third.
Okay, I want to ask you this question. I asked Jim Wilson earlier in the week, who's the best Beaver baseball player of all time? Now, first of all, he didn't say himself, which we knew he wouldn't say. But
No.
I was
He's in the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was a little surprised at what he said. I'm going to ask you the same question. Who's the best?
Okay. Well, I'll be interested to know. You have the advantage of me because I'm not sure that I've ever. And Jimmy and I have talked about everything under the sun over the years in the football booth and the baseball booth, but I'm not sure I've ever asked him directly. So I'll be interested in what you reveal to me here in a moment about what the big man said. Well,
I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, I do think I know. I think from a sheer talent standpoint, but the problem is he got hurt quite a bit, and it short-circuited his major league career too. But from sheer talent, I think Jacoby Ellsbury had more natural gifts, if that makes any sense. He could hit for power, he could run. Now, he didn't throw particularly well, but Pat Murphy said it of Jacoby when Jacoby was a freshman in the 2003 season. He said to Casey, your guy Ellsbury isn't not only the best freshman in the Pac-10, he's the best player in the Pac-10 right now. That was what Murph saw just in terms of a sheer talent in '03 when Jacoby was a freshman. And by his junior year in '05, he was a co-Pac-10 player of the year and a first-round draft pick and a good major league career that he just couldn't stay healthy in. So to me, just thinking about this modern run of Oregon State baseball, I start with him. He comes to mind first because he was the first, to me, really great player that Pat had as a position player who could do a lot of things. Darwin Barney's in the conversation. His brilliance at shortstop and his productiveness as a hitter. But I would still probably, because he caught and because he was such a great catcher on two of the best teams in Beaver history, 17 and 18, I'd probably give a slight nod to Adley as the best Beaver of all time for the year that he had in 19 and the brilliant year he had in 18 and leading the team to the national title as a catcher, doing so many things so well, shutting down run games, handling pitching, hitting in the clutch, hitting from both sides, throwing runners out. I mean, I just think because of the position he played and the impact he had on every game those 2 years in particular, 17, 18, and then the player of the year in 19, I'd have to go with Adley and Travis Bazzana, a very close second. So that's my list. What did Jimmy have?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that I would have said Adley like you. He said Travis Bazzana.
Yeah.
And I was a little surprised by that because I kind of weigh the idea that a guy's catching every day. And, oh, man, I know how tough that position is. And you know, his performance at the College World Series was also something to take into consideration, too. It was an all-timer almost. And so, but I want you to tell me about getting to see Travis play these 3 years for the Beavers and what that's been like for you, because he's obviously an electric player.
I've loved it, Dwight. And the interesting thing for me is it was 4 years that I got to spend with him, 4 seasons in a sense, because his introduction to life in Corvallis, I know it's modest and there's not as much attention and all of that, but he was a Corvallis Knight first.
Yes, and a great
in the
one,
summer.
Right?
And set, hit for the highest batting average, had the most hits ever by anybody in a good league in the summer of 2021. And that's when I first got to know him and fell in love with him that summer as a guy who was so thankful for the opportunity he was getting in Corvallis at Oregon State. And then just to see him develop. And so Jimmy going with Travis, I mean, that's not a bad pick. To me, it's Adley with Travis, a very close second in the history of the best players in Beaver baseball all time. But what Bazzana's done this year, maybe Jimmy's saying it because Travis broke his home run record's about to break the slugging percentage record, too, that Jim's had since that 82 season. Jimmy slugged 829, and Travis is going to shatter that one by over 100 points, it looks like, this year. So it's incredible what Bazzana has done. And I love him. His impact on the team and the program is phenomenal. Just to watch him after every game, like Adley did too, but Bazzana is interacting with youngsters down on the field after every game or through the netting, signing autographs. After the last game in the Corvallis Regional, an hour after the game, he's still there signing everything for every youngster coming through. When I interview him, I could interview him every day, and it would be interesting. His analytical bent towards breaking down his own swing, what he's looking for, what he's thinking at the plate, how he's developed his power, all of that is wonderful in itself. But when you ask him about what has it meant to you to come from outside of Sydney to the United States and play for the Beavers, he won't stop talking just about what the culture has meant to him, the coaching staff, his teammates, and how he wants to give back and be an ambassador for the Beavers the rest of his life. It's meant so much to him. Dwight, that's good stuff, and he's not just saying it to ingratiate himself with Beaver Nation. He's saying it from the heart. I love the kid. It's been a joy to be around him.
It seems like so much pressure too, Mike, that he's been under all season. Because really, I've had the feeling all year, they kind of go how he goes. And fortunately
Yeah.
for them,
Hmm.
he's gone great all year. So they've been great most
Hmm.
of the year, and I kind of
Yeah.
feel that still the further they get, the more he becomes the center of attention for the other club who's not going to pitch to him much. I think you're seeing that already. He's getting walked more. I would
Yeah.
walk him almost every time, to tell you the truth, unless the bases are empty. And if the bases are empty and it's like a one-run game, I don't even know if I pitch to him then. It's really, and he's
Right.
got good hitters behind him. I understand that, but he is just such a factor and such a he's just an overpowering figure at this level. And I don't know
Yeah,
that I've
you're
seen
right.
anything quite like it.
Yeah, I know, and he's a leadoff hitter too. He's
Yeah.
getting a lot of opportunities, and he's hit 7 leadoff home runs. When you talk about how good a guy is going, how about that too? Where you start a game, and he's 7 different times he's left the yard to start a game for the Beavers offensively. That's phenomenal in itself. So, you're right, and like Jimmy talked about too, a couple of things on the walking part of it. Michael McDowell, when healthy, and he's been pretty healthy and hot lately, has offered tremendous protection for him. And he has made teams pay for the walk strategy. And that is, Travis loves it. When they tell him to get on base, he gets down to first, bang, patting his chest like, let's go. And Michael so often comes through. But Jim Wilson pointed out the other day astutely, too. I think Irvine put him on. The next thing you know, Bazana steals second. And it was And so McDowell gets a base hit, and it's a 2-run single that turns a 6-4 game into an 8-4 game because Bazana was intentionally walked, yes, but he made him pay by stealing almost on the first pitch. And now McDowell drives in too. So you're right. He, at the top of the order, is a nightmare for coaches to decide how to pitch to him, if to pitch to him, when to pitch to him, when to put him on. When he gets on, he puts pressure on in the run game. I mean, he affects the game in such a – and you're right, Dwight. It all does start with him. And, if he makes an out or strikes out with bases loaded, and that's happened here and there, just the sense of, oh, my gosh, that just happened. So the team rides his high energy and his high productivity. If he makes an out, though, it's almost like guys don't know what to do because their man just made an out. So you're right. He's lived with a lot of expectation and pressure, but for the most part, he's come through incredibly well.
Mike, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the luck in the world over the weekend and with the Beavers. And I know how tough it is to get to the World Series when you're on the road for the Supers. The percentages are against you, but I'm happy to hear that you feel like this is a season where they have a shot, and that's good to hear that.
I think it is. No, definitely. I didn't feel that in 11, quite honestly, going to Vanderbilt. The Beavers were beaten soundly in those 2 games. They may not win the Super Regional, but I expect great baseball. I think it's a good matchup. I think they're going to be tremendous baseball games. And I do think the veteran make of the club and the leadership and the pitching we alluded to gives them a good shot. And I'm grateful to be in Lexington, a city I've never been in. I went by Rupp Arena. I saw the big football stadium right behind us. So it's kind of fun to get to come to this part of the world, legendary part of the world in sports, first time ever, and it's good to be here. I'd rather be at home, but if we were going to be sent out to a Super for a team that's never hosted one, I think this isn't a bad draw in that sense for the Beavers, and I'm hoping we're going to be talking from Omaha next week sometime, Dwight.
That'd be great, Mike. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dwight. Have a good time, and I'll be thinking of you anytime Kentucky lays down a bunt, and know that you'll be grateful.
Yes, please do that. I will be very happy to see them give up an out. That'd be great.
Okay, thanks.
Big thanks to Mike Parker for his help getting us up to date on the Beavers and their chances in the Super Regional against Kentucky. An outstanding team, and as Mike said, great defense, really good offense. It's a team that uses a lot of small ball, a lot of bunting and stealing bases, so it's going to be a real challenge for the Beavers. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this word. the president of the Los Angeles Clippers, in a story about the misdeeds of that Clipper owner, Don Sterling. Also, next hour, I've got some rumors for you. The rumored salary being offered by the Lakers to Danny Hurley to come over there and coach the Lakers. You're not going to believe it. Okay, the big story of the day as you come back to Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad gone. He'll be back next week. No big deal. He's in New York. Watch for him. Maybe he'll show up on the screen tonight's Dodgers and Yankees game from Yankee Stadium. That's where he's going to be. He's got his tickets already. But before I get to the real big story, which is the Celtics and the Mavericks, of course, the offer purportedly being prepared for Danny Hurley this weekend. Now, this is from Anthony F. Irwin. He is a blogger in L.A. who covers the Lakers. I don't know if I'd say he's credible, but I would say he's an insider to a degree. Okay, I've teased you enough. Here's the offer. Yeah. It's in the ballpark of 8 years, $100 million. $100 million, 8 years. Now, just let me talk to you about that for just a second. Think about it now. 8-year deal with the Lakers. Coaches don't last that long. But the danger of giving somebody a contract for 8 years like that at such a high dollar amount is that at some point during that contract period, maybe 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they get a little tired of being there and tired of whatever is going on at the time. Might even be winning too much. They might be tired of that. They might be tired of living where they live. They might be tired of anything. But you know what? When they get tired like that, they can act whatever way they want. They can start ordering people around. They can be obnoxious. They can be whatever. And that money's guaranteed. If you want to get rid of them, yeah, go ahead and pay off an extra $20 million or $75 million or however much money is left on that deal. It's crazy. That is a lot of money for a guy who has never coached in the NBA. Now, he is a proven coach. He's a great college coach. Not saying he can't do it, but I'm saying it's a whole new world for Dan Hurley to go into the NBA and coach the Los Angeles Lakers. Two problems. NBA is a problem, and the Lakers are a problem, both of them. It's the team with the most attention, the highest profile team in the league, constantly under a microscope, and it's a team that is kind of down right now, in case you haven't noticed, even though LeBron is on the team. So anyway, I'll be following that to see if Hurley goes for the money or stays put at University of Connecticut. Because you know what? It's a tough choice. A lot of money to turn down. On the other hand, how rich do you want to be? He's going to be plenty rich, even if he goes back to UConn. Okay, about the game last night. I was surprised the Celtics came out so solid and the Mavericks came out so, frankly, weak. It was a mismatch at both ends of the floor. But a real story has been Porzingis, the Latvian. Yeah, they churn out a basketball player or two from Latvia. 7'2", hadn't played for a month. But, man, he was comfortable at both ends of the floor. He was a difference maker. He has terrific value in the NBA game right now because he is a shot blocker and a three-point shooter. Everybody would love to have a center like that, basically a stretch five. Not only can he dominate inside on the defensive end, but he can take your big man outside to the three-point line with his three-point shooting. And he was very good at both of those things last night, controlling the paint on defense and making threes. He's very good when healthy. The big problem is he hasn't been healthy a lot of his career. He struggled with injuries, played most of the regular season with Boston, then got hurt early in the playoffs. And They brought him off the bench last night, which was, I thought, the way it worked out looked like a pretty good idea because they didn't have to stress his minutes out too much. They got off to a great start without him because that's the same unit that's been starting all these playoff games for the last month. So they played very well together, made a lot of threes, and then you bring him in as the Mavericks are keeping the game close. So that worked out really well for him. But he ends up with 20 points and 3 blocks. I also need to mention that Jaylen Brown was absolutely terrific. Way better than Jason Tatum was last night. And I've always maintained that for my money, I'll take Brown's defense and his offense over Tatum's. But you probably have to eliminate the free throw line because, gosh, Brown, for a guy who can score, is not a good foul shooter. You need him to be better than there. He had three steals and 3 blocks last night in addition to his points. And he was just better than Tatum at both ends of the floor. I still have a problem with Tatum and his proclivity for going one-on-one. He seems to like to put the ball on the floor, especially late in games, thinking he's going to take over, take somebody. And in those situations when he's closely guarded, he's not a great shooter. I think he's at his best when he has room, when he can get his shot off without too much obstruction. And I also caution you one other thing. I've seen it in these finals for years. Remember now, this is just one game. And the variance between game to game in a 7-game series is often crazy. You saw it in the Denver series against Minnesota when home teams couldn't win a game. You go on the road and win big. It's just kind of hard to figure out why. I don't really know why, but I do know what happens. So don't just get carried away with the Celtics just because they won that game and won it quite easily. It doesn't mean much. And we had Coach Nick from B-Ball Breakdown on in the first hour of the show, and Nick pointed out the fact that he just felt that it was just a bad game for Kyrie, that he did a lot of things he doesn't normally do, much of it maybe because of the Boston crowd or just going back to Boston or the fact he's played so well. Luka didn't have a good game. I don't think those guys are likely to struggle forever in this series. They're going to come alive, have big games that we're accustomed to them seeing. I do think, though, the way they were defended was a problem for them, and they weren't accustomed to that. They were not accustomed to being guarded one-on-one and then not being double-teamed, but switching all the screens. So, in other words, Luka couldn't do what he likes to do, which is hunt the weakest defender with the pick and roll or hunt the 5-man, the big man, and try to score on him, which – against the Celtics, that's tougher because you not only have Porzingis off the bench, but you got Horford, who's a really solid defender and closer to Luka's size. And both of them had pretty good luck last night staying with him on the pick and roll. Even if they switched, they were playing drop coverage a lot and allowing him to shoot. And I pointed out last week that, or earlier this week, that both Kyrie and Luka had been shooting so well from mid-range. I'm talking about high 60% with those guys, which is above what they normally shoot and most people shoot. That isn't likely to continue to occur. It's not sustainable. And we kind of saw that last night. Those percentages dropped off quite a bit. So you're just not you're not going to see them do that again. I think they'll bounce back up. I'm just looking at a tweet from Chad. Chad's in Yankee Stadium, and here's his first complaint of the night. I know a lot of you follow Chad. It's Chad in Portland on X. I'm Dwight James on X. Here's Chad's first tweet from Yankee Stadium. Yankee Stadium offering only Pepsi products is something you expect from a second-rate organization like the Mets. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the Yankees are being paid quite well for offering Pepsi. because I would believe both companies are likely to pay a lot to get into Yankee Stadium. That's a big deal.
I think I read recently Dr. Pepper is now the number 2 soda in the country, with Pepsi number 3.
Get
Coke number 1.
out. Seriously, Mike Shacker?
Yeah, I guess all those ads paid off during college football.
Wow. So there's a lot of peppers out there. Remember that ad? Be a pepper, drink a pepper.
Yeah,
Dr.
made me
Pepper.
a lifelong pepper.
Do you drink Dr. Pepper?
Oh, yeah. They got a new flavor this summer, coconut cream.
Coconut
pretty good.
cream, because Dr. Pepper basically is a cherry-flavored beverage anyway. What does that taste like?
Oh, it tastes good. It's like a cream soda with like a hint of coconut.
Oh, I do go for the cream soda. I kind of like, I go for the vanilla flavoring in my Diet Coke all the time. I like it. It's a great feature of Sonic Drive-In. They offer those flavors.
I think it's a legit complaint. They should be Dr. Pepper or Coca-Cola at this point.
Get out.
Yeah, no one should be serving Pepsi products. It's a legit complaint.
Yeah, I think you're right. They always say, is Pepsi okay? And my reply is always the same thing, Mike. No, it's not okay. I guess I'll take it because I have no choice, but you better get Coke. And that's usually what I say. And they laugh because they've heard it before. I think they get a lot of complaints about that. I really do. Coming up next on this very radio program, you're going to hear us speak with Kelly Aucoin. Oh, man. He's got a part in Clipped, the new series, 6-parter, featured on Hulu that dropped this week. You can see 2 episodes this week and then more to come as we move through the series. But I think you're going to love it. I can't wait to talk to Kelly about it. Coming up next on Rip City Drive with Dwight only today. Very excited about this segment of the show. It's Dwight and Chad on Rip City Drive, 620, Rip City Radio. Joining us is Kelly Aucoin. You know him as a Trailblazers super fan and as Dollar Bill on the great hit series Billions. It was terrific, and he was terrific. But he's in a new series, and this one, a scripted series about events that you probably know a little bit about. It's about the Clippers. It's called Clips. It's on Hulu. Made its first appearance this week. You can catch up on Hulu. 6-part series that's had 2 episodes released already, and catch up with those. I heartily recommend it. But it's a series about Donald Sterling, the owner of the Clippers, and why he lost his NBA team through a variety of misadventures. So welcome in Kelly Aucoin. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks. I like misadventures. That's a good euphemism for what went down. That's great.
I didn't know what else to call it, you know?
It's hard, right? It's the debacle. It was kind of an open secret. He was a racist bastard. So maybe the great reckoning finally came to him, perhaps.
I think so. I wanted to ask you, how badly did you want to be a part of this once you heard about it, being the big basketball guy that you are?
I was watching Winning Time, which I loved, with my wife, and I told her, I apparently literally turned to her on the couch and said, when am I going to get my basketball show? And 2 weeks later, I had the part.
Wow.
And I heard about it because I got the audition. I had no idea they were doing this, but I got an email with the audition information, the breakdown of the character, and I was just like, oh, I would play this weasel so badly.
Do you think they knew you were a basketball guy when they did that? Because I would think it helps.
I mean, I did. It was a Zoom audition that was live, so it wasn't. The industry is trended now towards pretty much all self tapes, except sometimes you're in person and you have a second round or a third round, like chemistry reads and whatnot. But this was a live Zoom audition with just the casting director, and I did tell her that I'm a fanatic, and I knew the story, but I don't know if that helps or not.
Okay, I want to ask you some behind-the-curtain acting stuff here. Andy Roser, I know a lot of people who know him and some people who know him very well, and I'm curious, did you study him somehow? Did you talk to people who knew him? Did you meet him? Or do you just totally take that script and go by that when you play a living person like this?
Yeah, I mean, the script was so specific. Great writing. The better the writing, the more specific the details, the more you have a handle on the character from jump. I did speak with a lot of people who knew him and had dealings with him. I did not meet him in person. I don't even know if that was something that could have happened. I'm pretty sure there were some healthy NDAs signed. But getting a little bit of insight into character from different points of view. And Mona Shelburne, who created the podcast that our show is based on, the podcast was called, it's brilliant actually, called The Sterling Affairs. She had met with him and I got some insight into the character there. To me, we're doing our version of the events, and we're doing, I'm my version of this guy. Based on educated guesses and some of the behind the scenes stuff. But a lot of, I have firsthand accounts. And to me, at least my version of the character, it's very much a study in the eventual downfall or the eventual, like you make a deal with the devil and you're going to pay at some point. And certainly Andy, he knew what was, my character anyway, knew what was happening. People who worked with Donald knew his racist policies in terms of his real estate and the weird way he ran the team, and they stuck with him. And you put a blinder on, and sometimes it comes and bites you in the ass, like I think it did with a lot of these people.
Yeah, and they gave you a patch of hair that looks a lot like Andy's hair, really. Because I
Yeah.
went back and looked at some pictures, and they did a great job. I have to tell you, my
Yeah.
producer Mike Shacker, he thinks that hair took 2 decades off your age, and
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I think almost that being bald could be an asset to you moving forward because they can do whatever they want to do with your hair. They can make it a different color. They can make it
Yeah.
thick or thin or
Yeah.
whatever, and it
I mean,
almost looks like it's an asset.
yeah. I mean, look, I've grown to accept my follicular challenges, and
As have I. Yeah.
yeah, and Pastor Tim had the wig. Andy now has the wig, and they're very different. I think this, Pastor Tim's wig was a little ridiculous. This one is pretty good, and I like the fact that it's off my face so much. The hair's off my face so much that, unlike Pastor Tim, I think people will actually recognize me.
Yeah.
So that's a plus as an actor. Yeah, and also, so Teresa, our brilliant wig master, she put the wig on me. Then went to see Gina Welsh, the showrunner, and she now it's got to be thinner. I came back. We did this like 4 or 5 times where they just kept thinning in specific places until we got it just the right level of receding. It was cool.
Now,
it was a cool process.
Kelly, did they have to put that on every day that you did it, that you filmed, or is that something they put on and it'll just stay on throughout the whole course of filming this production?
Oh God, that would be a nightmare. Yeah, they put it on every day, and it took about half an hour, and it was kind of fun. I got along well with the wig people, the hair people, so it was a great way to start every morning. And then Ed would come in with his piece, and so he would just regale us with stories. Ed O'Neill is one of the best storytellers you're ever going to meet. If he's on whatever he's promoting, if he's on a talk show, just stick with it and listen to his stories. He's great. He's really fun.
Yeah, I've heard him. He was terrific. He is also the guy I heard say this week that he thinks he works harder on the publicity for the show than he did actually doing the show.
That's great. That's great. He did say, he said something interesting. I maybe he told me a little bit of this when we were working together, but he said that he was going to turn it down. He said, that sounds fascinating. Script is really good, but I'm not going to do it. And on the way to, in the car on the way to meet Gina, he was already writing his rejection speech or whatever you want to call it. His no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he sat down with her, and he was just so charmed by her, and he loved her pitch and everything. He just found himself saying, yeah, I'll do it. She was like, I hope you'll still think about it. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it. And he's in the back of his, he was like, wait, what the F did I just say? I was going to say no. And part of the issue, he said, was that, you do some roles where you can do, use like 70% of your toolbox, maybe 60 or 50% of your toolbox. He's like, this was gonna require 100%. Like, I don't know if I want to do that, but he was glad he did, and he's brilliant in it. And the 4 leads, I think, are phenomenal. Jackie Weaver, Lawrence Fishburne, always phenomenal, and Ed, and then Cleopatra Coleman. They're great, I think.
Yeah.
So it's fun to be a part of that and interact with them.
Yeah. Our guest today is Kelly Aucoin, Trailblazers super fan, and the guy playing Andy Roser in the series Clipped, which began this week. Only 2 episodes dropped this week out of 6, so it's on Hulu, and I really advise you to see that, particularly if you're a basketball fan. It's a great story. And I wanted to ask you about playing Andy Roser. What was the challenge of playing him? I mean, he comes across as such a suck-up, which everybody who worked for Donald Sterling was, I think. I think you had to work there. But what was – and I got to hand it to you, there's sort of a nuanced uneasiness about him too, like especially when he's around the character Doc Rivers, played by Fishburne. Right. I see that, and it seems to fit really well with what he was.
I get, you make choices about how to key into the brains, the way the character's brain works. And I think if you're in an organization like that for so long, and Sterling got Andy really young, right? Basically right out of school.
Yeah.
And I think, how do you survive? How does one survive in an organization like that? If you're not an idiot, you know that there's a lot of untoward stuff happening. And for me, it just was like, how am I going to make this not just a hangdog, depressing guy? My answer was, it's like, yes, I will eat that crap, sir, and please, can I have another? And just smiling through it.
Yeah.
That's his way of eating every day. It's like, no, everything's great. Sort of a cross between, if you're a Simpsons fan, like a cross between Smithers and Ned Flanders.
Yeah. That's a great comparison. Hey, I want to ask you too, Kelly, were you aware of the depth of Sterling's story before you read the script? I mean, the whole part with his assistant and his wife and the way she was treated and on and on, the overall, I would say even evilness of the character is incredible. Yeah. Did you know about all of that?
I didn't know any of these nuances. So 90% of this story was actually new to me. I knew the basketball part of it. I knew the racist comments. I knew the protests that the players put on. I didn't know the depth, the extent to which there was agonizing behind the scenes about, are we going to play? Are we going to play for this guy?
Yeah.
Wait, we're not playing for him, but he's the owner. Like, it's like they were in a terrible position, and it's, this was a cursed franchise according to most people who know the NBA. They were this close to winning a championship, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, not in terms of how far they got, but that team could have easily won the championship that year. So, people, that's what they live for, and it's like, all right, we're going to give up our best chance to win. Finally, the thing that we've dedicated our lives to, because this a-hole who happens to own the team, we're gonna hurt ourselves for that, or and maybe we should have made a statement. It was just, anyway. I like the way the show, as the series goes on, I like the way the show portrays how they all grapple with what they should do.
You mentioned some of the very good actors in this series, the four leads. Who impressed you the most in the way they worked during this?
Oh man, that's hard to pick. Everybody. My main stuff was with Ed. I had a good chunk of stuff with Lawrence. One big scene with Jackie. They all. And then Clifton Davis. There's a scene coming up with Clifton Davis, who plays Elgin Baylor. That was one of my favorite things I've ever shot. Everybody just came to play. Everybody was deeply prepared, especially with Ed, Lawrence. There was a lot of room for not improvisation exactly, but just like, you throw something slightly different at me, or I do to them, and they feed off of it. Everybody liked to play ball, to use a sports metaphor.
Yeah.
And that's fun. That's why I got into acting to begin with. It was that sort of camaraderie and the giddiness when something slightly different happens that you hadn't planned or wasn't specifically on the page. As soon as the director yells cut, everybody bursts out laughing because I was like, wait, what was that? That was amazing. So it was for a show that dealt with a lot of heavy stuff, and I think it doesn't shirk on those topics. But it was a fun set, and it's a funny show.
It is, yeah.
And actually, for people who aren't huge basketball fans, there's more that happens off court than there is on the court in this series. It's definitely partially about basketball, but it's more about power dynamics. It's more about, gender dynamics and race dynamics than it is about basketball per se.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Did you, I've only seen the first two episodes, obviously, and we're waiting for the last four, but I'm just curious, did you manage to sneak any Trailblazer references into the script during these episodes?
Yeah, no.
I mean, I'm doubting it, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, I would have loved to have made some sort of Brandon Roy, or L Train reference or something like that. But no, it wasn't. There wasn't room for that kind of improvisation, unfortunately. I did enjoy the fact that there was one locker room scene that had the teams in the Western Conference and where they stood in the standings, and the Blazers were really good. At least that particular week that we were representing, the Blazers were really up there. Like, yeah, that was that team that. And then I got pressed again, remembering what happened to that team.
That's right. Have you ever met, since you did it? Have you ever met any of the real people involved in the story?
I have not, actually, although a buddy of mine knew Shelley Sterling, and said he was very pleasant to him. But no, I haven't. I have not.
How do you think?
I'd love to meet Doc Rivers.
Yeah. I was wondering about Elgin Baylor too.
Oh man, I would love to meet him, but that's sadly no.
How do you think these people are going to take their portrayals?
I have no idea. I was speaking with Ramona, and she's seen it. She created the podcast it's based on, and she's seen all the episodes, and she's like, it's true. Everything is true, and that's the best we can do is we can portray what happened, and try to be fair about it. But it's hard to say. No one likes seeing themselves on TV.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I can't let you go without a nod to Billions. It was such a great series, and it became so popular. But I want to congratulate you and the cast and the writers on a perfect ending to that saga. I just loved the ending, Kelly. I just thought it was a fun series, and it ended just perfectly.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was fun to go back on it. I had lots to do in season 6 when Bobby left, because Dollar Bill was pissed that he was going to go off and do his own thing. But I was really happy to be brought back into the fold for the final season, and it happened to coincide. I had a lot of red eyes for the first 6 months because I was filming at the same time in Los Angeles, and so more than once I went from set in LA to a red eye to set in New York, and then sometimes in reverse as well. I was tired sometimes, but every time I complained to my wife, she'd be like, just shut the F up. Like, you've got, oh, boo, you've got 2 shows you're filming. I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Kelly, what are you working on now? What's next for you?
I am not working on a project right now. I've been doing a lot of press for Clipped, which has been great, but I head back. There probably will be some residual stuff, but I head back to New York tonight. And then, I'm just looking for the next project.
You think doing this show and this portrayal, does that help you get work?
I hope so. I mean, I think work begets work. If what I love about this role is that it's a very different character than I've played much on TV. It's more comedic, and the vibe is very different from any of the major roles I played before. So, hopefully, I think I'm already getting, like, my manager is like, I mean, don't take this wrong, or my agent, actually, don't take this wrong. I mean, I know you're funny, but you're funny. Like, yes.
Took him this long to figure that out, huh?
Yeah. So, it's hopefully it'll open different types of doors,
Have you allowed yourself to think about what next season might be like with the Trailblazers, and can you take another tank season?
I can. I mean, it's hard. Everybody, the fans that follow, and Blazers Edge or even on Twitter, I guess, when season starts, that is going to be tough. Everyone's like, nope, we got to. It's tank. We're going. It's going to be hard. It's a multi-year process. We got to let them grow, and then 15 games in, when they're losing, they're like, what's happening? This is crazy. Oh, fire everybody. And it's like, come on, dude. This is going to take a while. Yeah, yes, OKC caught lightning in a bottle, but that's not the norm, Yeah. It's going to take a while. So I'm actually perfectly fine letting them grow slowly. And I will say that I saw two games last year, one in Portland and one in Brooklyn, and the Blazers won both games. So, Blazer Brass, if you're listening, I really think you got to give me some, some tickets.
I think that's a really good idea for sure.
Good luck charm. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, well, Kelly Aucoin joined us today. He is on, it's a show called Clipped. I highly recommend it, about Don Sterling and the Clippers. It's on Hulu. If you don't have Hulu, get it. It's worth it just to get it for this show. It drops Wednesday. Are you going to go 2 episodes at a time, do you think, or are you going to cut back and do one a week?
The premiere was 2, as you said, and then it's going to be 1 a week. Is it Wednesday? I didn't know when they're dropping.
Yeah, that's when this week dropped. Now, it could be different in the future. I don't know, but that's when it dropped this week. So
I thought I heard Tuesdays. But anyway, early
could
midweek.
be Tuesday. Well, hey, I've been late for a lot of things in my life, so it's probably Tuesday. Check on Hulu. They'll tell you when it drops. Kelly, thanks a lot for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother. Always fun.
Big thanks to Kelly Aucoin. You know, he's doing a great job in that series, and I really hope it leads to many more juicy roles for him in the business, because he's terrific, and I still love that part he played as Dollar Bill. It should be a series of its own, following the misadventures, if you will, of Dollar Bill. Hey, we'll be right back here on 620 Rip City Radio.